Hey, what's up, everybody? BDF 44 coming at you with another video. Alright, so I figured I'd do a therapy session just to keep the practice going, given the fact that I have been doing pretty good with this for the last couple of days, and what's going on coming up. It would just make a lot of sense to keep the practice going of venting. So, yeah, woke up this morning feeling pretty good. Of course, did the Laker video, felt pretty solid about how my vibes were, more or less. Got up, prayed, did the normal routine, and then from there cleaned my bathroom, which was something that was much needed for myself. And that was pretty therapeutic. Listened back to some of those videos and stuff like that, and then from there just went into looking at different solutions that I have, baby steps and various things. So I'm like, okay, what's going on with my fridge? So I checked the company, and of course, just like we thought, they were bullcrapping around. They now have no record of the serial number of the fridge or the transaction. So of course, I had to email them and proceed to go through the rigmarole of getting back my little $43. I had a feeling that wasn't going to ever show up. So, needless to say, they're a full of crap company, and strictly Mott should not be taken seriously. So, if you hear of them, stay away from them. All right, so we got that out the way. Also, what else? I did what I needed to do in regards to making sure I can get to the courthouse on Wednesday. Making sure that Lyft is in my app, and making sure I priced how much it should cost. Roundly enough, it ain't that far away. It's gonna cost less than $10 to get there, and probably less than $10 to get back. So, whatever, no biggie. In regards to getting there, so that's one less thing I gotta worry about. So everything else right now is just me trying to just basically stay positive, and just kind of just deal with it. And for me, it's just like when I was going through the process of doing my prayer shower, however that is defined this morning, just kind of going into my innermost as I always do. What really came to me is just how I would like to be able to apply my faith in the areas that I don't. And I consider myself to be this very, believing person, but when it comes to certain things, and my anxieties are defining for me, where's the faith come in? When is it that the faith works? Then how does it seem to become a situation where suddenly I'm so very certain things are going to go without God, so to speak? And that's what everybody who has anxiety has to, and who also is a believer, has to try to make some sense of, I guess you can say. It's like your anxiety is that of which is not faith, believing. It don't believe that things are going to be fine, which is why you're so anxious and so stirred up, or whatever it may be. So at what point do you be able to calm yourself with the truth that the Lord is in control of everything, and all of these various things that, as a believer, you inherently believe? And so that's where the rubber meets the road, where it becomes a situation where it's like none of this is going to make any sense, because it's probably a byproduct of something that has nothing to do with your consciousness or your spirit. It could be brain injury, or it could be chemical, or it could be drug related, or whatever it is. You know what I mean? It doesn't necessarily have to be something that you break down as simply, my faith is not being applied here. But as a believer, of someone, as someone who is a believer of mind over matter, and as someone who believes that I have to overcome my own self in this way in order to address what's ahead of me, I gotta assume that there is some way to overcome it with my belief in what is true, which is that God gives me all good things, and that the timing that I've been aligned with Him is on par with what He wants, and that I have purpose in all of this. I think it gets to a point where you just say, what if God's plan for you was for you to do all of these things without actually benefiting from it? What if that's the point? And then you just live your life as He would intend for you to be, given that reality. And you'll be who you need to be within that reality, even though it won't be no happiness involved to you. You won't be none the happier. You'll be exactly who He wants you to be. And it's like, how much of that am I in control of with my anxiety, versus how much of that do I let go of? You know what I mean? On my own, how much of that is not anxiety? How much of that is just personality traits and bad conditioning and various things? So, you know, as I find myself in this situation, having put myself in this situation, it just becomes a situation where I wonder, like, could I have ever done all of this if I was any other way? And I don't believe so. You had to be a special kind of used to certain things in order to ever find yourself in the position I'm in, and I don't think most people ever are, based on how unique my upbringing was and how unique my trauma was. And so I just feel like I'm in a somewhat unrelatable position, and because of it I have to figure that out on my own. Even if I were to get help, I don't think it'd be too many people who would understand what the hell I'm going through. So that's really what it comes down to. You just feel like, you know, that anxiety is yours to figure out. So it brings you back to, at what point does my faith override my doubts? And the very things that keep me comfortable in the house and keep me married to the idea that the only thing I'll do is wait for the squeeze or whatever. If that movement in my mind, if that for which makes me more productive, isolation, if that for which makes me more comfortable, staying to myself in isolation, if all of that is ultimately going to lead to me having the most anxious and the most frustrating moments, how do I find myself in a position to overcome that by becoming more proactive leading up to those moments so that it never occurs? And that's been the puzzle of my life. You know, the idea of being comfortable and what it is that makes me comfortable is so very alone and inactive in regards to certain things that must be taken care of to hold up my end of the bargain. And I do not believe that a person at 38 years old is going to easily undo some bad conditioning, no different than easily undoing things that they probably should keep a hold of. I think that those things are kind of worked into your equation. So for me, it's like, I can't be stuck like this. You know, just because I've been like this forever doesn't mean that it's sustainable, as I've always said. So I always hope that my faith, which I only partially, I guess, applied, would carry me through, when in reality, partially applying that faith is probably why I've been left confused. You put yourself halfway in regards to what you believe in and halfway out, and then think you're going to get a full understanding or what have you. I'm finding that doesn't work. You got to be all in. And so how to be all in when you face different struggles, and the way that you cope with those struggles is to be halfway out. You know, how do you cope? And the answer is to remember what it is that you try to keep your discipline for, which is to keep yourself with both sides in, so that you can have the understanding, so that when you get to these moments, you're not as lost as I find myself being at this moment, and without any help and all these different things that only come from only being partially faithful or partially believing the Lord is willing to be favorable to you, so on and so forth. So that's really what it is. Through all the favor I've received in my life, I always think that there's going to be just a big drop in my life, and I'll probably course myself toward that drop. And I think we're facing it. So for me, it's just like, okay, well, how much of this is supposed to make me better, and how much of this is supposed to make me bitter? You know, and that's where the faith comes in. It's like, it depends on how much of this you really believe is your fault versus how much of this you think you should be angry at someone else about. And the reality is, I did everything here because I was alone. I did it all myself, you know, and so I can't blame nobody else for my conditioning. You know, I can't blame people who are no longer with me for how I was raised and stuff like that. I don't think it holds much weight. I think at the end of the day, when you're a 38-year-old man, no one cares. And see, that's what I've come to understand. Being coddled as a young man, or as a baby rather, just got you used to believing that that's the energy you should always receive, or that's the energy that's always going to be there, or that comforting energy is the energy that you can most gain energy from. You know what I mean? Gain strength from comfort, gain strength from safety, gain strength from all these different things that you get conditioned to be when you're a doll, more or less. You know what I mean? As opposed to, kind of giving what it is that you need to be nourished and cultivated into your best self. And so that's kind of how I feel. Like I was kind of like a doll to a degree. And it wasn't really a whole lot poured into me that would otherwise make me my my most ambitious self, working around all of those different things that I was trying to deal with internally. It just made for a bad combination of things to be used to come 2023. And so it's like, all right, how do I overcome that? And so I look around and I say, doing things that otherwise make me stressed will get me out of this circumstance. And it's like, well, there's no way out of the stress. And so it's like, yeah, that's kind of where it is. No way out of the stress. It's either going to come to you or you're going to deal with it on the way. And so for me, it's like, how can I prepare myself for these moments more? Because every time I put myself in a position to enjoy life for any period of time, it's always this, which naturally comes when you don't initiate your own work, when there's no one there to push you ever to go breadwin. And so for me, it's like I can breadwin because I did it for periods of time, but because I wasn't used to it, and because I would always walk away from anything that would stress me, I didn't have much of a resistance for stress when it came to that. With this type of brain, growing up not really consistently having to do it over and over again or seeing any fruit in it, not believing in the benefit of being paid is something I should actually want. I look at my check and didn't care. Like, that's just how my mind was wired. Like, I didn't care at all. And when it really came down to it, it was just one of those situations where, you just don't respect the dollar like you should. You don't respect it. You respect that others are getting it. You hear everybody talk about it, but you see the struggle and the stress that you have to face in order to get it. And you just don't care to do those things, even though everybody else does it, because you're not quite in the environments where you're going to be forced to do that, where people are going to encourage you to do that, where people are going to make it so that you are a fool for not, you know what I mean? Not being raised where that was actually culturally ridiculous to not be, money first. It just gets to a point where, you don't grow up that way. You don't grow up caring about that. You grow up, if anything, wanting to stay away from those things, which is what I've been explaining to you guys in the last couple of therapy sessions. So it's like the cultures that people are from, the normal, thing. It's just escaped me. I've been able to escape it. And so, very strange enough, I think all of those weird perceptions make me who I am. And now that's why you see me behaving in this way, used to what I'm used to, and falling into these traps that 99 out of 100 people ain't never gonna find themselves in. Because they're gonna be too afraid to find themselves in a situation, and the circumstances for which it would even be acceptable would never be in their lives. You know what I mean? It's like, this is a very unique position I'm in. And so I respect that. Things can turn around right now. Like literally right now. Stock market's still going on. It popped right now. But it ain't. And that is a big problem. And so miracles like this are things that you need the Lord to do for you in order to save you from these type of mistakes that you make when you don't allow yourself the proper lead up to your big bad day, is what I call it. You know what I mean? If you don't do everything you're supposed to do, there will be a big bad day. And when it comes, all you're going to really have for it is weakness and a bit of anxiety to provide it. And so, for me, it's like, how much help is there for me when I've lived my whole life believing that the only person who believed anything was wrong with me was me, which is strange to me. But how do I go over there and get help? It's the question I've been asking myself for the last 3-4 weeks, and I don't have an answer. The only thing I can bring myself to do is be anxious about what has to happen on Wednesday. That's it. That's really all I've been able to do. And Laker videos and clean and stuff like that. But that's the literal truth. Just don't really understand for anything. And so with what's ahead, it looks like I have to figure out everything by myself, more or less. And to be honest with you, in fight or flight situations, I usually snap out of it and just do whatever I have to do. But I don't think I've ever been in a situation like this. Not without a vehicle, not without resources, not without people that I can talk to organize anything. This is all going to be done basically with myself and anybody else that want to help me that hasn't spoken to me in a very long time in a lot of situations. So yeah, man, I guess we have a power outage is what we're dealing with right now. But I don't know, man. It just is what it is. I just feel like regardless of whether or not I feel righteous in what I'm dealing with or not, at the end of the day, we've all done something in this life that would make it so that you feel like you deserve what you're getting. Even if it ain't the same level, you can look back and say, yeah, I may have caused God to be a little pissed at me about something back in 2013, and this is the time he wants to kick my behind. But the trick for a person like myself is to not coerce yourself into thinking that you deserve those problems or not fixing those problems because of it. You know, it's like just because God is mad doesn't mean he doesn't want you to use the resources you have to put an end to your struggle. You're not supposed to sit there and suffer. You know what I mean? And so I think a lot of people get that part confused. I think I've found myself in situations where I might have had that the wrong way. It is what it is. But, you know, I appreciate everybody listening to BDF 44. Obviously, with the power out, I don't know how long it's going to be, so I should probably turn off the camera since it does take from the battery quite a bit. So that's what I'm going to do, man. I'm going to cut this thing short and just give you guys that. And I appreciate everybody for allowing me to vent. As always, BDF 44. Thank you all for watching.